you spoken to Zeb?
No, I haven't. I didn't have a chance. I was away Friday, a good part of the day, and Shabbos I wasn't here.
And next week you're going away?
And a week from today we're leaving.
Okay, you're gonna go to Naphtali?
Not directly.
No.
We're going to be away for 3 weeks, but only in the third week are we going to be at Ramat Beit Shemesh.
Okay.
So if I see him, of course, I will give him
Right.
your warmest grease. All right. Thank you.
Charlie,
It's good to
by
be
one
back.
of my grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that?
Wherever it is, I mean, wherever Charlie goes,
He-
that's where my grandson lives.
In the same building as his son?
They dive in the same place.
That's near the Mir.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I mean,
Yeah, it's near the Mir. Yeah.
But I know that because my
My
grandson
daughter-in-law
I have,
says he has
my
regards from
daughter-in-law's,
me. I don't know who
brother
it is. Some
is
guy
a
named
rabbi there.
Charlie. So I
Rosner.
said, yeah.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law has a nephew that's learning at the Mir now.
And my daughter-in-law has a brother who's a Rebbe there.
Oh yeah,
Rabbi Rosner.
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, my kid is actually in a brisk kollel, but that's where he lives.
Yeah.
He was in the Mir.
Yeah.
But
And
now
now
Uh-huh.
he's learning in the Arctic. And it's very brisk.
it's brisk. Right.
Uh,
Litovsk.
Okay, okay, let's go through our learning sponsors. Year of Learning, in Arnie Garlic, in memory of Malka Proman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch. And Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Azna bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecher Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. I assume that this is incorrect when it said for a month of learning from February 25th to June 3rd. That's got to be.
That way, if that's a bargain.
No, it's got to be probably 5/3, right? And this has got to be 4, right? Whatever. Okay, that's in a month of learning in honor of Lydia and Abe Krause's 50th anniversary. Also, month of learning by David and Mindel Cheslow in memory of his father, Moshe ben Ruvain Mordechai, Susan and Reuven Podolsky in memory of her father, Simcha Bunam ben Yeshua, Haran and Mel Haller in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer ben Tzvi Hirsch, Susan and Reuven Podolsky in memory of her mother, Chaya bat Avram Dov. Bei Pizer in memory of her father, Yitzchak Dov ben Shmuel. We also have a week of learning by Jack Gilman in memory of his brother, Zev Yosef ben Yitzchak, Sharon and Michael Glass in memory of her mother, Chaya bas Avram Baruch, Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of her mother, Mushka Sprinza bat Yosef Chaim Vachava. Okay, Judith Eisger in memory of her son, Ansha Yitzchak ben Aaron, Michael and Judith Poretsky in memory of his mother, Rachel bat Avram. Okay, today is the 1st of May, Sid Paris in memory of a day of learning in memory of his father-in-law, Israel Dov ben Yitzchak Yaakov.
Krause's anniversary has got to be over. It's 3 months.
And Hashem is having a Aliyah, Cranker, Rafir, Velti, Yeshua, Hashem, Tzliya, and Mechol ben Israel could bench. Okay.
That's right, today's May Day. Yeah, the plane's gonna crash.
Okay.
May Day.
All right.
It's be a big socialist.
All right. I'll do it on the 9th.
Okay.
Okay, so the Gemara ended on Nun Dalet Amud Beis with this fellow that had multiple marriages. Okay,
Thinking that a bunch of them were dead.
okay, and that he married one, then the sister from a brother, sister from a mother, sister from a father, sister from a father, sister from a mother, back and forth, back and forth.
Guy was a glutton for abuse.
Well, he knew the family already. Okay, in any case, so the Gemara goes through that. All right, that's what it referred to in the bottom of the Amud, right? Okay, so it's in V'asur b'shniya b'revi'it, ve'ein biyat echad mehen poteret sarata. Okay, and none of those cases cleared the co-wives. V'im ba'al hashniya la'achar mitat harishona, says the Gemara. And if he had relations with the second wife after the death of the first one, mutar b'shniya u'b'revi'it, he is then permitted, okay, with regards to the second and the fourth, upoteret sarotehen, and then that does exempt, okay, the other co-wives, those,
Those were perfectly
right?
valid marriages.
Va'asur b'shlishit u'b'chamishit, but he's prohibited with the third and the fifth, okay, and now that leads us to the top of Nun Hey, right? Which is today's daf. Alma, therefore, achot ishto, bein min ha'av ubein min ha'em asurot. Okay, so therefore that would seem to imply, okay, that regardless,
State clearly.
okay, that regardless if it is the achot, right, the sister, through maternal or paternal, okay, that seems to be the case. Right? Minalan, and what's the basis? Now the Gemara is going to go into a long discussion as to what's the basis, what proof can we give on this, challenge it, it's going to challenge the proof that's given, suggest an alternative proof, challenge that, and then continue until we ultimately try to find an answer where we then wind up getting to a brand new topic. Okay. All right. Yalif me'achoto. Let's learn it, says the Gemara, from, right? Right, what happens? That Isur on achoto. Ma'achoto, bein min ha'av bein min ha'em. Whereas regarding his sister, right? Whether it's through his father or through his mother. Afkan, bein min ha'av bein min ha'em. So likewise here too, we're going to say in that achot ishto, right? Therefore, what case there? It should be from the father or through the mother. So the Gemara says, Leif midodato, challenging it. Maybe we should learn it based on his aunt, right? Madadato min ha'av velo min ha'em. Okay. Whereas the prohibition regarding the aunt, all right, is through only the father, okay, and not through the mother, right? In that case, Afkan may be here in this case as well. Min ha'av velo min ha'em, okay, and it should only be through the prohibition, should only be through the father and not through the mother, not maternally. Mistabra, says the Gemara, and this may seem logical. Me'achoto havalela melef, okay, from his own sister. Okay, there we might be preferable to learn it there. Shekain krove atzmo, mikrove atzmo. Okay, so in other words, there we're saying we're talking about somebody who is a relative close to him. Okay, and therefore you learn it from relatives close to him. All right, to the maternal side. So which is opposed to his father's relative,
which
right?
are close to him,
which are not as close to him as his own. In other words, the relative through his father.
No, his father. Those are the ones that are
but
close
they're
to him.
not
The mother,
not as close to him.
Right.
The
Right.
one through
Right. You got
marriage.
it right.
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 Okay.
That's not as close to him,
Right.
right? In other words, it's his father's
Sure.
relative, but not his
His
direct relative.
Right.
Okay? Even though the suggestion was with the other, okay, we normally say that the family line is through the father and not through the mother. That's the issue, right? So the Gemara picks up then and says, Adraba, just the opposite. Midodato, maybe again challenging it, coming back to the earlier suggestion, learning it through the aunt, right? And we're saying the paternal aunt,
Yes.
right? Hava leila melef, why should we learn it from there? Shekain davar al yedei kiddushin, because that's an example of something learned vis-a-vis marriage. Okay,
She was just a lady till she
Right,
married
right.
her uncle.
Medavar she'al yedei kiddushin, and therefore learn it based on something else, another model that's also based on marriage.
You married your wife.
Okay, Ella, rather, says the Gemara, coming back is trying to answer the challenge. Me'eshet ach yalfina. Maybe we should learn it from the example of Eshet ach. Okay, Shachan davar al yedei kiddushin ve'u krovei atzmo. Because there, in regards to the situation, you want to say the model, the example of Eshet ach, we could learn it based on two elements. On the one element through marriage, and also the element of the aspect
Blood
of it
relative.
being a close
Blood
relative,
relative.
right, of himself. Okay, so the Gemara says and asks the question: if that's what you're going to learn, use as your basis for the learning, ve'eshet ach gufa minala. How do we know that that's the case? The Tanya, right? Because we learn elsewhere in a Braita the phrase "ervat eshet achicha," citing the Torah, lo tigaleh, right? The erva of the wife of your brother you should not reveal. Bein min ha'av, bein min ha'em.
Doesn't matter kind of brother.
Regardless whether it's from paternal or from maternal side. Ata omer bein min ha'av, bein min ha'em. You say it's from either the paternal or both, let's say the paternal and the maternal side, right? O eno ela min ha'av. Or perhaps it's only from the paternal side.
Alone.
V'lo min ha'em, and not from the maternal side. V'dinhu, and this may seem logical. Let's put it that way for the moment. Chayav kan, v'chayav ba'achoto. He would be chayav in this case, and chayav also with the situation of his sister. Ma'achoto, bein min ha'av u'bein min ha'em. Whereas with regards to his sister, all right, we
His
say,
own sister.
right, we say it's forbidden. He's chayav on erva and koret, etc., etc. Whether it's from the paternal side or the maternal side. Afkan, so here too, bein min ha'av, bein min ha'em. Okay, so it also would be whether it is from his paternal side or his maternal side. Okay. Oh, or says the Gemara, trying again to give us another direction, right? Kelech lederech zo. Or you might want to go in the following derech, the following approach. Chayav kan, v'chayav b'dodato. We could say he could be chayav here, and chayav also with regards to the aunt,
Paternal aunt.
right? Ma dodato min ha'av v'lo min ha'em. Whereas from the aunt, it's from the paternal side, but not the maternal side. Afkan, maybe here too, min ha'av v'lo min ha'em, that it could be from the paternal side and not from the maternal side.
Meaning his brother has to be a paternal.
His
brother.
has to be his brother through the same father, right? Okay. Near elami domeh. Let's examine to see who to whom what's comparable. Danim krove atzmo, mikrove atzmo. Okay, we determine this from those who are relatives close to him, based on other relatives closer to him. Va'al tochiach dodato shekrovei ha'av. And don't try to prove it, so to speak, okay, based on the aunt who is the relative of his father. Okay, lech lederech zo. Or you might go in the following direction. Danin davar she'al yedei kiddushin, mi davar she'al yedei kiddushin. That we determine and judge the situation based on marriage relationship from another example based on marriage relationship. Va'al tochiach achoto she'isur haba me'elav. And don't try to prove it from the example of his sister, who is forbidden in and of itself. Okay, because there we have a clear text that tells us that she's forbidden. Talmud Lomar. Why? Because we have the example of the following. Ervat achicha hi. Okay, but what about the fact that we have a pasuk, right, that says ervat achicha hi? It's the erva of your brother. Bein min ha'ab ubein min ha'em.
It simply says achicha.
It doesn't spell out whether it's from achicha from the av or achicha from the aim, and therefore we have to understand that it is both. Okay? All right. Now we pick up, and we're going to see another challenge. Ve'ema. And I might say as follows. Idi ve'idi be'eshet ach min ha'av. But that both this case and this case are dealing with the wife of the brother through the father. Chada, okay, one pasuk, okay, or one part of a pasuk really. Diyesh labanim b'chaye ba'ala, where it's a situation where I'm going to say it's possible that one part of the pasuk deals with a scenario that she has
marriage
right children, progeny during the lifetime of the husband. V'chada,
the brother.
Right, the brothers, right? V'chada, and another part of the pasuk could be applied. De'em labanim b'chaye ba'ala, when she doesn't have progeny, okay, during the lifetime of her husband who was his brother. Ein labanim b'chaye ba'ala, in a situation where she doesn't have progeny from her husband, the brother, mida Rav Huna nafka. That comes from the view of Rav Huna. Va'ema, and I might say on another case, idi ve'idi be'eshet ach min ha'av. Maybe this case and this case each deal with this wife of the brother of the father.
Because that's the only one you would do.
Right?
Yibum.
Because it's got the Yibum has got to be done through the patrilineal line. Okay? And maybe that's the case. Chada, one part of the pasuk, the yesh labanim b'chaye ba'ala, could be a situation where she had progeny through her with her husband while he was still alive. V'chada, and another part of the pasuk, the yesh labanim la'achar mitat ba'ala, a situation that she produced progeny after he died, okay, which would still then not require yibum, right? Yesh labanim lachar mitat ba'ala lo tzricha kra. Okay, but the Gemara is telling us here, if there's a situation where we have children, even, I'm going to put in the word here, even after the death of the husband, we don't need a pasuk because the pasuk already tells us yibum is not required in that situation, right? Only when there is no children whatsoever, right? Okay, right? Well, she could have been.
Children is lav dafka.
Okay, no, but take an example where she could have been pregnant, the husband dies, and she gives birth after
After
the
his
death of the
death.
husband.
She
And that's,
still doesn't. do
she
Yidden.
still
That's how you
doesn't
do
mean-
Yidam.
Well,
No,
that's
that's
why
how
she
you
you
still
have it.
wouldn't do evil.
name the child after the father. That's interesting.
That's what they do. Well, they do. That's why you do mimer and wait 3 months to see
Okay.
if she's pregnant
Right.
and will produce children.
Mhm. I mean, that I know of situations that actually happened, in real, I don't want to say in real life, but more
I
contemporary
was
terms.
once involved where the woman gave birth about 4 hours after her husband died. Wow. And we first did the Levaya,
And then you did the,
and then and it was like a third, then we made a Bissa Shalom. So, wow.
yeah, no, I remember distinctly that situation, somebody telling me, because I remember the first time that gentleman had an Aliyah. Okay, he was already an adult,
Oh, and his name is Ruvain Ben Ruvain.
people, they're
Looking
little
at him funny. Well,
looking-
you don't sound like a Sparty to me.
they were surprised. And then the explanation came up. That was the case.
You can pretty much figure it out.
Yes, but most people aren't as familiar with that whole situation. Okay? Anyway, so that's the Gemara's point, is you would not need a pasuk to tell us that under those circumstances. Okay? Right? Mida amar rachmana she'en labanim muteret. Why? Because the Torah explicitly tells us, right, that if she doesn't have children, right, what happens? She's muteret to the yabam. Ha yesh labanim asura. Okay, but here in this case, if she had children, or even after the death of the brother, she is forbidden to the yabam. Vidilma, says the Gemara, and perhaps ein labanim. She has no progeny. Asura la'alma v'shar yabam. Maybe we're going to say it's a different explanation, that she's what in this case? She's
Forbidden to everybody
General.
except
The-
her.
No, it's a Sharya la'alma. I'm sorry.
Asura
Asura la'alma. She's forbidden to everybody else, but only permitted to the Yabam. Yesh labanim, and if she has children, Sharya la'alma, v'shar liyabam.
Everybody else.
She
but
was
not
permitted
him.
to, right, and permitted to inami, or perhaps ein labanim mitzvah. Sorry. Or perhaps we're going to say when she has no progeny whatsoever, that's when the mitzvah applies. Yesh labanim, if she has banim, if she has children, reshut,
If he feels
It's-
like it.
it's up to
These
him.
are all havaminas that are
Right.
immediately rejected.
Right. Ina, that's why I said we see challenges. Right? Inami, if that's the case, ein labanim en. If she has no children, what do we mean by reshus? If she has no children, yes. Yesh labanim lo. Or maybe if she has no children, no. Lav haba miklal asay. And we would understand this as an example of here we have a prohibition, okay, that comes out of a general statement, and therefore we determine that that's really a,
Limited to the whatever the
okay,
general.
to the
the
assay
would
is
be.
what it says that it's to be performed. Katav kra achrina. So the Gemara says, wait a second, we have another pasuk, okay, and this other pasuk says as follows: Ervat achiv gala, okay, in that situation. But what happens there? Ve'ema, and I would say, Eshet ach min ha'em ke eshet ach min ha'av. Okay, that the wife of a brother through the mother is similar to the wife of a brother through the father. Ma eshet ach. Okay, what about? Ma eshet ach min ha'av la'achar mitat ba'ala sharia. Whereas we're saying that the wife of the brother through the father, after the death of her husband
under certain circumstances
is permitted, right? Af eshet ach min ha'em. So likewise, the wife of the brother through the mother, lachar mitat ba'ala, sharia, also would therefore also be permitted under, right? Okay. Now, the implication, by the way, is with the pasuk ervat achiv gala, there's no punishment of karet. Okay. Amar kra, but the verse says he bahavyata tehe, she in her current existent situation. That's what it's referring to.
She was forbidden and remains.
And that's the case. If you want to phrase it another way, she was in a certain chazaka, she maintains that chazaka. Okay. Bavyata tehe. All right, now going on. Okay, achoto, the ktav bakaret lamali. Right? So therefore we see what happens that regarding his sister, where there it spells out the punishment of karet. Why is that the case? So now you get the following.
It's a klal uprat.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to get to another whole scenario. Ukla de Rabbi Yochanan. And this seems to be going according to Rabbi Yochanan. Da Amar Rabbi Yochanan, who says as follows: She'ima sa'an kulam b'ha'alem achat, that if he did all of them in one single,
Every one of his relatives,
right?
every araya,
all of the examples of erva, if he did all of them in a single,
he is a Superman.
all right, chayav al kol echat ve'echat, says Rabbi Yochanan. He would be chayav on each and every one of the
112 korban.
each one. Okay, all right. So here, in other words, the implication is if all the examples of erva are forbidden, okay, why specify? We're going to get to the question. Why specify it about the sister? Why that particular pasuk spells out the same prohibition when we say it applies to all of them? Okay, that's the question. Okay, furthermore, says the Gemara, all right, well, Rabbi Yitzchak, what about the example of Rabbi Yitzchak, the Amar, who says, Kol chayve kritut, beklal hayu. Okay, all of the prohibitions regarding koret are let's say, within a generalization. Right? So here the Gemara spells it out a little bit more, I think. Okay, so why then the pasuk that deals with achoto, why is it spelled out there?
Is it removed from the klal?
Right? Seems to be that that's specific, whereas if all the others are general, why did you need to say it there?
That's correct.
Okay, says the Gemara, the duno bekaret velo b'malkot. So his answer, Rabbi Yitzchak's answer, would be to tell us that also is punishable through karet, and it's not simply like a general lav, which would normally be punishable only by malchus. Okay, lechalek minalan, to divide it up on what's basis. Nafkale, all right, we could derive that from miva'al eshet b'nidat tumata. We could derive that lesson from a different pasuk. Okay, all right, and that would be the case about the dealing with a woman in need, right? L'chayev al kol isha ve'isha, and that would therefore make him, all right, chayev,
A separate
a separate case for each and every woman, each and every one. Okay, so the Gemara says, hold on a second, we've got another case. Okay, right, we got another case. And in just a moment, I may need to grab a chumash. Okay, unless Mel knows it by heart. Okay, or it could be. Okay, Dodato. Okay, yeah. Okay, Dodato the Ketav Barachmana. But we've got another example. Okay, if you're talking psukim, and the psukim say one thing, and then another pasuk says almost the same thing, why do you need them? Well, what about the following example, says the Gemara? Dodato de Ketavba Rachmana, regarding the situation with the aunt, he says, Aririm Yihiyu. Okay, it says they will be childless. Lamali. Why is that necessary? Okay, Lekaderabba. Okay, that was necessary for a statement made by Rabbah. Why? The Rabbah, Rami, because right? Because Rabbah raised the following contradiction, namely, Ksiv Aririm Yihiyu. In one pasuk we see it says they will be childless, okay, as if that's towards the future. Uktiv Aririm Yamusu. And another pasuk it clearly says they will die childless. Why the both? Why the two? HaKetzad. How is that possible? Yesh lo banim. Right? How do you resolve them? Right? Yesh lo banim. Okay. Namely, we might say if he has progeny. All right. Wait. We'll get to it. Okay.
If he has
Wait.
children,
We'll get to it. Let's get to the Gemara first. Okay. Kovran. He will bury them. Ein lo banim. If he has no children, holech ariri. Okay, he will be childless. All right. So now the Gemara still isn't satisfied, and now it's going to get to a further explanation. All right. V'itztarich, and it was necessary, right, to include both. Why? Lemichtav avirim yihiyu. It was necessary to write childless they will be. V'itztarich lemichtav aririm yamutu, and it was necessary to write, okay, that they will die childless. Why? De'i katav rachmana aririm yihiyu. That were it that the Torah had only written childless they will be, hava amina, I might have thought, ad chat'eh, until he committed the sin. Aval michat'eh va'elech. Okay, but after he committed the sin, lo, that's not the case. In other words, when he committed the sin, those childs died, or those children. But after that, further progeny would survive.
Assuming he did true.
Well, let's hope so.
Right.
Okay, right? Right? Katav Rachmana Aririm Yamutu. But the Torah also says, childless they will die. Ve'i Katav Rachmana Aririm Yamutu. Had the Torah only written Aririm Yamutu, Hava Amina, I would have said, Mechat'eh va'elech. That would have been from the time he committed the sin afterwards.
Whatever.
Later progeny.
Earlier kids are
Okay? Aval me'ikara, those original, those earlier children would have been okay. Lo, that's not the case.
Now they die early.
Right. Tzricha, and therefore it's needed to have both. So that was the explanation the Gemara gave.
Anytime a child dies before bar mitzvah,
Yes.
instead of punishing it.
Right. Okay. Now we get to the X-rated, adults-only part of the Gemara. Okay.
You'd think
All
that
right.
yesterday wasn't.
I'm too young for this.
I don't know.
What?
Okay. All right. Okay. Remember, we came back to an earlier discussion in the Gemara, okay, where it talked about, okay, a situation, what was the initial act of
Beginning of
relations, the initial act, okay, or what was a later act, okay? And basically the Gemara is going to divide it, I'm going to suggest,
define
into
it now.
3 stages, okay? And we're going to see there's a machloket and trying to define language based on which of the three stages the Gemara has presents to us. Okay? All right? All right. And I certainly don't have a diagram for that.
Probably following on my phone.
Okay. All right.
You don't have the filter?
Okay. Ha'ara'ah, which we said was the initial stage. Dechayve lavi minala. That we say that initial stage is obligated as it would appear, normal love. Okay? On what basis? Midegale rachmana shichvat zera gabe shifcha charufa. Based on the fact that the Torah presents to
Singles
us,
out.
okay? Yeah, that could be, presents to us, singles out, just clarifies it by the language of shichvat zera, okay? The emission of seed. I'll translate it that way. Gabe shifcha charufa, in regards a Canaanite
Complicated case. We don't need to
servant
know the
case.
case.
Okay, miklal dechayve lavin bahara'a. Okay, from the general, okay,
It's not
statement.
general. Since that
Since
was
the Torah
singled
specifies
out
that
for
that-
Shabbat,
wait.
everywhere
and
else.
everywhere else.
Wait, we're
Free
jumping ahead. Wait, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Hold on. Miklal dechayve lavin bahara'a. Okay, from here, okay, the fact that the other situation seemed to be loved with regards to Shichvat Zera and Shifcha Charufa, this seems to be a more significant act. I'll put it that way for the moment. Okay? Right? A greater prohibition. You want to put it that way?
It's easier. If he doesn't ejaculate, it's not an
Well,
Avera. You
okay.
can't say it's worse.
Well, we'll see. Hold on. Ad Rabba, just the opposite, says the Gemara. Okay? Medigale Rachman Ha'ara B'chayve Krita. Since the Torah includes Ha'ara'ah among those items that would be prohibited with a punishment of karet, Miklau Dechayve Lavin B'gemer Bia. This would seem to imply, right, that
less serious.
that the other situations are simple lavin, and they're not dealing with a complete act.
No,
Okay.
the other way around. They only become also through the completion of the act.
Since
The
the
chayve
Torah
lavin begamar bia, that
Because
they
the Torah
come,
says
that they
especially
become obligated through the full act.
Yes, right.
when it's a Kore's case, just a little bit
Is forbidden,
you're finished.
right?
But
when if it's
only
more-
a lav, you get to finish before you're finished.
All right, we'll see. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, im kain l'shto kra mishivcha charufa. If that's the case, says Rav Ashi, okay, then in regarding the verse pertaining to shivcha charufa, it should be silent, right? Ha'ara dechayve lavin dekuhuna minala. Okay, so what about the fact of ha'ara in regards to chayve lavin? Okay, prohibitions of a general lav vis-a-vis a kohen. What's that
Meaning
basis?
a Gerusha or
Right? Atya
no, the one is fine.
kecha kicha. Right? There we come to an example of a gezerah shava with kicha kicha. Okay? Dechayve asa minalan. Okay? So where there is that, okay? Dechayve ase minalan. Okay, on what basis is that? So we see one example where there's an isur regarding a mitzri va'adomi. Okay, that would be one example. Right? That would be a general lav. Okay, all right.
And not say that
Right.
infers the
So
lav.
now that we're going to get to the chayve aseh minalan, in that kind of a case of an isur mitzri or adomi, all right, what happens there? Okay. Ata bia bia. There we have again a gezerah shava based on two psukim as well. Both of them are in Devarim 23. All right. Yavama lashon menalan. So what about the example then of the Yabama?
If she has
Okay,
bia with someone
with bia with other than the Yabam. Okay, that's the point. There we have the question of pasuk in Devarim versus a pasuk in Vayikra, right? Ilaman da amar lav, according to the one who says lav, it's no. Ilaman da amar asay, according to the one who says there is an asay there,
She has to be
Okay.
with her yavam.
she has to be there. Asay, that it's right that that's an asay, that she has to have relations with the Yabam. Eliyavama the Yabam minala. So we now ask that question according to the those who say that it's an asay. Again, acha bia bia. There too, again, we're going to do the gezerah
Here
shava.
it means, at what point in the intimacy is she becoming his wife? That's what that means.
Did you base that on Rashi?
Yeah, we said in the
I mean,
Mishnah,
Yavama,
That
knowing how
no
do you
matter
know that
what, no
or
matter whether
is
his, whatever
required.
his
Wait.
neshama was, no matter what he did,
I don't see that
he
in
is
Rashi.
kohen at her. That's what we said in the Mishnah. So now we're coming back and we're saying how great a level of intimacy is required on the part of the Yavam and the Yavama to conclude the marital bond.
So all they say is bia. That's all. They
No,
don't
that
say
was bia
quantities.
was a gezerah shava.
It's a
with
heck
the
of-
But it
Egyptian
gives it
woman.
again,
No, let's
right?
go- let's go
Acha
back
bia
there.
bia.
They don't talk
Okay,
about
that's the
quantities.
point. They don't, right. I don't see that. I don't see it in the
I
Tosfot
mean,
either.
the Mishnah said, Echad Ma'ora, Echad Gomer, Kona, by the Yavama. So the one wants to know that.
Now,
Manolan,
what
how
is
do you
it,
know
the
that?
definition
The
of
Mishnah,
ha'ara?
you're talking about the Mishnah.
I'm not convinced.
Okay, don't be.
Okay. Isha ba'ala minalam. Okay, what about that example? Acha kicha kicha. Okay, there too, again, we base it on another gezerah sham. Okay, because there it says lakach in one place, it says lakach in another.
And that's any old marriage.
That's a general marriage.
So we're now learning that whatever constitutes intimacy for a yavam and a yavama, the
The
same
same
thing
exact
constitutes
attitude in a
intimacy by
general
any
marriage, general marriage.
So now we have to define intimacy, and that's what the whole rest of the Gemara is about. How far in?
I don't know. Okay.
How far in the Gemara?
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about.
Lama li dichtav Rahmana. So the Gemara asks, still gets to a question. Okay, the question being, okay, we saw the example of Shichvat Zera applied to the Shifcha. Okay, all right, to that case. Okay,
So that's unique.
all right. So is that such a unique situation, or do we have any other examples
We
of
have
that?
the complete mamish.
Okay, now we're going to give other examples, and we're going to discuss other possibilities. Okay, we're following, all right? The Shifcha Charufa, that's where we saw Shifcha. The Shifcha Charufa is where we saw it in one case. Shichvat Zera, there's a second example, Be'eshet Ish, in terms of that example. A third case, Shichvat Zera, Besota, and a third example with regards to Sota. Okay, so the implication of the Gemara is going to be, okay, all right, what is the clarification, okay, of Shichvat Zera? Okay? The Shifcha Charufa, with the example of Shifcha Charufa, Kida Amran, as we've spoken about. Okay, we've explained that has to be a complete sexual act.
Right,
Let's put
and
it that way.
otherwise no ash.
Right? No, right. Okay. Next case, the Eshet Ish, with that example of somebody having relations, an adulterous relationship with another man's wife. Prat lemishamesh mate. This excludes, it would appear, her dealing with a non-erect organ. Okay. Ha nechelaman da amar mishamesh mate ba'arayot patur. That seems reasonable when we say that dealing with that kind of a situation, okay, right? With regards to one is exempt. In other words,
If you limp, you wiggle out.
Ela laman da amar chayav, but according to the one who says chayav, my ikla mema. What do you say there? Ela prat lemishamesh meta, with the exception of having relations with a dead woman
who was married in her
life. Okay, all right. Anyway, the salka da'atach amina, because it's possible I might have said, o il lachar mita nami ikre sa'aro, because it might be possible that even after her death, you would still consider her some sort of a relative. Okay, and it would be forbidden. It would
still be chayav.
Ema, I might say lechayev Allah be'eshet ish, and I might therefore say that he would therefore be subject to the punishment of having relations with the eshet ish, with a married woman. Kamash Malan comes to teach us that's not the case.
It's only bizarre.
Okay, all right. Next case, third example, desota lamali. So why then do we have the language of Shechvat Zera in association with the example of the Sota? Right? Likaditanya, as we teach elsewhere, right? Shechvat Zera. What do we mean by Shechvat Zera? Prat the davar echer, with the exception, to exclude, right? Some other activity. My davar acher, what is this other activity? Okay, Amar Rav Sheshet, suggests Rav Sheshet, right? Okay, Prat l'shekina la shalo kedarka. Okay, it's with the exception to exclude the example where the husband is jealous and he warns her about having relations with the man that is a natural, right? Amar le, but he challenges Rabbah, challenges him. The pasuk said mishkavei isha, implying in the plural.
There are different ways.
So that implying that there are more than one. Right, there's darka and shaloka darka kativ. So in other words, both of those would be considered a sota. Right, exactly. Ela amar Rava, says Rava, prat l'shekina la derech evarim. Maybe it comes to exclude the example that he was jealous and he warned her in regards to doing something with her limbs.
In other words, touching without.
Right. Amar le Abaye, says Abaye, pritsuta asar rachman. You need a pasuk, so to speak, to forbid. The Torah needs a pasuk to exclude that kind of promiscuity, that kind of activity. Ela amar Abaye. Says Rab Abaye, prat l'shekina la benishika. Okay, to exclude the situation that he was jealous and warned her in terms of any physical contact.
Genital physical.
Yes, right. Well, that's the case. All right. Ha nechalamanda amar hara'a zo hachnasat atara. Okay, that example given by Abaye may be acceptable to those who understood ha'ara'ah as, let's say, a certain amount of entry, and a certain amount of entry. Okay, Ela laman da amar zo neshika, but according to those who held that the ha'ara'ah was similar to nishika, okay, contact between the two areas, right? My ikalamema. What are you going to say? Ela le'olam l'shekina la derech evarim. But rather, we're saying here that it was an example where he was jealous and warned her about contact with any of her limbs. V'itztarich, and we say that was necessary. Why?
That it's not a sota.
Right?
That's all.
In other words, that she would not be considered having committed an act
She
that
would not
was
be
subject to
drinking
sota, right?
potion
That to the ad.
if she did
Yes,
not.
right. Okay. Salkata atachamina, because I might have thought, bekapeda de Baal tala rachman, that the Torah relied on the objection of the husband. V'hakapid, and here he seems to be objecting, kamash malan. That's what that it does not imply that she is guilty of the sota status. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, gives another statement. Hara'ah.
We said some say Nishika, now we're
Okay,
finding out
so
who.
we're trying to clarify, okay, what these different three stages we found referred to. Ha'ara'ah, okay, where we said that was the initial stage. Zon nishika. This is how Shmuel defined it. Contact between one organ and another. Mashal Adam shemaniach etzba'o al piv. The example of a person who presses his finger against his mouth. Iyavshar shelo yidchok habasar. It's impossible that it won't press some part of the lip internally. Okay, so that's the implication. Ki ata Rabba bar bar Chana, and when Rabba bar bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Gamar bia b'shivcha charufa. There, in the example of shivcha charufa, we were talking about the completed sexual act. Right?
He redefines completed.
Right. We're going to say what he says. Rabba bar bar Chana. What does he mean by that? Zo hachnasat atara. That means the entrance of the male organ more fully into the female area. Okay. Meitiv Rav Shesha. But Rav Shesha challenged that definition of Rabba bar bar Chana. Why? Because it said Shechvat Zera, right? Eino chayav ela al biat hamerok. Okay, that implies that Shechvat Zera is to be understood as the completed sexual act. Okay, what do we mean by that? Lav merok gid. Don't we mean then the completed sexual act by the organ? No, he says no. Merok atara. Okay, no, implies that it means the right removal of the.
This is premature ejaculation.
Could be.
Yes.
Ki ata Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Dimi came, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he gave another definition. Ha'ara'ah, the initial act, zo hachnasat atara. That is the entrance of the male organ. Amrule, and they said to him, Vaha Rabba bar bar Chana lo amar hachi. Rabba bar Chana, when he gave the definition of Rabbi Yochanan, okay, he gave a different definition, right? Amar laho, they said, and he said to them, oh, ihu shakrai, oh, ana shakrai. Either he's lying or I'm lying. Okay, so what happens? We get another example.
Third Rabbi
okay, ki ata Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Ravin came, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ha'ara'ah zo hachnasat atara. Ha'ara'ah is the entrance of the organ up to a certain point. Ad Rabbi, just the opposite. Bar Chana says, Vadai Pali, but that's where they disagree. Ad Shmuel, and as regards to Shmuel,
They
Milema.
both- No matter how you define Rabbi Yochanan, he is
Disagreeing, blah, blah, blah. Well, we'll get to that.
That's what it says right now.
Yes, that we're going to get to it. Okay, he first disagrees with Rabba Bar Barchan, and the Gemara is going to ask him. And as regards to Shmuel's statement, okay, Milema Palig, do we say that they disagree? In other words, is he challenging Shmuel's statement also? Okay, besides,
Shmuel said Neshika.
right,
he's saying
besides Rabba Bar Barchan's disagreement, lo, Menishika va'ad hachnasat atara. Ha'ara'a karela. No, but maybe Shmuel was saying that from contact through the initial entrance, that is what he calls hara'a.
Okay. Time, it's a process.
Ki ata Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda amar Rabbi Yochanan. And when Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda came, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, ha'ara'a zo hachnasat atara. That is the entrance up to a certain part. Gamar biyah. What do we mean by that? Gamar biyah mamash. That means the completed sexual act. Okay, and the Gemara goes on tomorrow to start us off. Mikan ve'elach eino ela nishika upatur aleh upaleg ad Shmuel.
And you're not chayav for just
Okay,
touching.
and therefore contact, okay, is
It's
not
it's not bad enough
a
to be a
sota, and therefore he does disagree with Shmuel's definition as well.
Okay,
And we'll start-
Shika from kissing.
No, Mashika
Meaning-
doesn't mean kissing. It
That's the
means
day.
touching.
No,
No, the Shika was when you have it. With your tongue. Lasha dakiya.
Yes.